Hello everyone, this is the real AC RX5808 Pro Plus. This is the one with the Achilles firmware on it. And no, mine did not come with this case. That was my terrible print. Was that invisible to you there on the blue on blue? Anywho, so you can see my print didn't come off great. You can find all sorts of prints if you have one of these on Thingiverse, and if you have a printer, you got a buddy with the printer, or maybe you live in a city where there's a printing place you can go to have it printed so you can get it right away. Otherwise, you can order through Thingiverse, I think, and also various other 3D print shops. You can buy these from Banggood as well. I think they have a couple of prints for these on the Banggood website. But we're going to take a quick look at this. This has been covered probably more than a few times, I bet, because it's not as though this hasn't been around for a while. And something I did a bit of reading, but I was very curious about the origins of this software and this 5808. And it turns out that, as far as I can tell, Shay Ivy of LaForge played a big role in the firmware and possibly this device getting going. That could have been pre his LaForge days, but I thought that was pretty interesting that Shay, who programs the LaForge module, which I use, had a role in this. But anyways, you can see that it's got a USB port right there on the bottom, so for updating your firmware, which I didn't do. This is stock out of the box. We've got our two receivers down there and then our pins. If you're a first-time user of any board like this, or you're looking to get some Fat Shark goggles and putting pins, the thing I can tell you I read about more and more and more is, well, two things. Is be very careful to line these pins up when you're putting them in your goggles. You know, kind of eyeball them as they just get started and then press it in. And the other thing I see is people put foam tape on the back and then they put it in and they maybe didn't get it right, or they want to remove it and they end up tearing the boards apart. So if you're going to put foam tape on the back, which a lot of people like to, be very careful about your choices and how much adhesive it is, or how firmly it's going to adhere to both this surface and the inside goggle surface. Otherwise, you could end up damaging one or both, and that makes everybody sad. I'm going to go ahead and pop them in the goggles. I'll put my terrible 3D printed case back on. Geez, look at that thing. It's just... I needed a different sort of filament, I think, for this particular print. Anyways, I'm going to pop this back on. We'll pop on the goggles, take a look at it. So this is what I'm talking about when lining this stuff up. Hopefully this is going to focus here for us. I don't have great lighting. But you just want to get your pen started. I'm not looking through the lens here. Hopefully it's lining up some way. You want to make sure you're getting all your pins lined up. You can kind of feel it, and then you shove it in. Okay, that's what I was talking about. There's our boot screen. Shows us a picture of a Trojan, kind of a nice looking image. You can get when you saw that, you can also get a little idea of the pixel density of the display if that's something that you're interested in. I, of course, don't have any antennas connected, and that's not such a bad thing. I don't have anything powered on, so we're not going to be going through all these features and looking at every little thing. But here we go. We got the wheel. We go up and down, and we press in. That's how we navigate. You heard that there's some internal sounds that you can hear when this thing boots up, so that's another thing you should be aware of. Ultra search is where I found mine to be default, and this is where you go to scan. Like if you're like me and you're flying by yourself, so it would go through and scan all the bands and pull up the band that it finds. I didn't find that it necessarily locked directly on to the best possible channel. I was doing a comparison, and I would actually do the ultra search multiple times on the same quad just to see, and it does vary slightly. I mean, it might be off by a couple of frequencies, but I'm not talking entire bands. I'm just talking like, instead of it being on 5817, which I don't even know if that's an actual valid one, let's say 5905 is your actual channel. It might be on 5907. So that sort of thing. And depending upon your antenna that you're running, that can vary a little bit. So you can either trust it or not. I thought it worked pretty well. I didn't have any disappointments in that. We've got the manual search. Obviously, when you go into that, then you start to make adjustments up and down with the dial. You can see it changing bands and channels there. Favorites, you go in there, select your channel, long press, I believe, yeah. And then we say, well, what do we want to start up, or we're going to delete it? I must have had that already, so we'll just say, well, that's our startup. Press in again, successfully saved, so now it'll start with that channel. Let's go down. The event mode keeps all the bands. It searches all the bands and keeps the ones that it found right there. That way, when you're watching a race or something like that, if somebody goes down and disconnects, it should allow you to go to the next one, or you can just quickly go to the next band without having to do a rescan. We've got the band scan that tells you everything that's out there in case you want to know what everybody else is running. Oops, I missed it. Let's go back. We can find your model or the quad finder sort of thing, and you would use normally a patch antenna at one of your receivers, and when you're using that, then you would point the patch in the direction you think it is, and if your signal on that antenna is weak, then you point it in a different direction, and wherever it picks up, the signal gets stronger, then that tells you in the direction you need to walk, and the more you walk, the closer you get to finding your quad. These are obviously our settings, kind of an interesting animation there. Calibrate your call sign. You can turn the alarms off. Flip screen, on and off. OSD resolution PAL, OSD on. Factory set, save and exits. So did I see all that? Yeah, filter normal. That's all normal. So then if you just wait, that menu goes away. Kerberos Mode. This mode is, as they put it on the Achilles website, a revolutionary mode that the two receivers on the module are working independently. Kerberos Mode, that's a little bit interesting. What this seems to do from their description, I did not test this out, is that one antenna will lock on to, or one receiver will lock on to your channel that you're on, and the other one will kind of wander around near that channel, and then it'll switch back and forth as you move through your flying space. If the other channel becomes stronger, then it will switch to that. I haven't tested that to see if that makes sense, but I'm sure that the people who do this sort of programming have found an advantage to using that, or a reason why you might want to use that. You've also got the lap timer, which is typically if you're racing. I think normally how that works is when your signal gets real strong as it passes by you, it counts you as a lap. Obviously, this isn't counting it from gate to gate, but as you go by yourself. So if you have a racetrack where you're coming back and forth towards yourself a lot, that might not work out great. And then we're back to Ultra Search. Okay, the next section, I don't have two sets of Fat Shark goggles. I know, disappointing, but I'm not that sort of wealthy, I guess, or fortunate, I should say. I am fortunate that I have Fat Shark goggles at all, but I don't have two sets. So what I decided to do to give you some sort of ability to see whether this works as well as the LaForge V4 module, that's what I'm comparing it to, and that may not be actually all that fair because I didn't update this. This could be as recent as it gets for all I know. Didn't look into that at all. Just wanted to do a comparison. So the primary video that you'll be seeing in this video is on the 5808 Pro. The video linked down in the description is a raw, uncut video that I did within, I would say, 7 to 10 minutes on the same day with the same quad using the LaForge. The reason why I did that is I think that allows you to open both videos and you'll be able to select points rather than me trying to time them out and flying the same circuit. You know, it's just, everything besides this seemed to be clunky and bad. So if you're really interested in doing a comparison in my flying space, then that's kind of what we need to do. We need to use a computer, and we probably need to have two windows open to YouTube. You can right-click the link below in the description to the raw LaForge file, and then you can, you know, navigate them on the video scrubber and put like spots and see what you find as far as breakup goes, or the type of image that you're looking for. The short of this is I think this is a worthy competitor. I think if you want to deep dive into this deeper, I would expect that Bardwell, with all of his testing, he has got probably a much better test of this module. For me, you might not have noticed it, but you probably saw this in a few videos actually. And you know, it's quite a budget option. I think this is like 50 or 60 bucks. And the diversity module that, you know, I use with the LaForge that's $100. And I'm sure there are cases where all this stuff with maybe LaForge does better in some way. I've been using LaForge for quite a while, and you guys have always commented about how good my video is. And I think if you like my video and you're on a budget, this is a pretty good option. Especially if you're someone where you're buying the new HD2s that kind of came out, the black ones, and you've tapped out your wallet and you need a module and you don't want to spend $100 on a rapid fire or a LaForge. This is pretty good. I was honestly quite surprised. The people who are making this hardware and who are programming the Achilles firmware, I think they're doing a nice job. I thought it was easy to use as someone who's been using this one. I'm not a huge fan of the scroll wheel, and maybe that's where the premium side of these other modules come in, is navigating the interfaces is a little bit easier with the hardware interfaces that they have. I do have a rapid fire module as well. I have yet to use it. I've had it out of the box and I've updated it and I've played with it a little bit, but I haven't flown with it in the field, so I can't give you any real comparison on how this compares to the Achilles. All right, we'll go ahead and roll that footage. If you have any comments or questions about this particular module, the RX5808 Pro Plus, please let me know in the section down below. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.